A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. It is great to have you with us today. We also great to have with us our old friend Ashe Schow from the Daily Wire, who has not yet been a guest on Bearing Arms Cam and Company, but has been a guest on Cam and Company in the past many, many times. I asked Ashe to join us to talk about perhaps another presidential contender getting ready to jump into the race. Do you know Ed Stack? Have you ever heard that name? You ever heard Dick's Sporting Goods? Probably heard of Dick's Sporting Goods, right? Well, Ed Stack is the CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods, and apparently, according to Politico anyway, he is apparently considering a run for president. Now, a spokesperson for Stack says, no, he's not considering any presidential run. But Politico reports that this week, there was some message testing going on, some focus groups assembled to hear Ed Stack's resume, including, his love of gun control. And then they also asked, after you've heard all of this about Ed Stack, if you had to choose for president between Donald Trump, Elizabeth Warren, and Ed Stack, who would you choose? What about Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Ed Stack? Who would you choose? Now, Politico reports that this focus group took place. They don't report the results, which leads me to believe that even after hearing what a great guy Ed Stack is, the focus group members were not all on board with electing Ed Stack as president. So it may be that this goes nowhere, the presidential run. And frankly, that's probably actually a little bit more dangerous for gun owners. Michael Bloomberg's also thinking about getting into the race on the Democrat side, but he says Joe Biden's got to implode before that happens. I don't know about you, I would rather these anti-gun billionaires throw their hundreds of millions of dollars away in a bid to become president than use those hundreds of millions of dollars to influence races like U.S. Senate races, U.S. House races, state legislative races, as well as the presidential campaign in 2020. And I suspect that we will not see Michael Bloomberg or Ed Stack become formal candidates, but I do expect that they will use some of their fortunes, hundreds of millions of dollars worth, to try to go after your rights and my rights as well. So we talked a little bit about that with Ashe Schow of the Daily Wire. Take a look and a listen. Ashe, it is so good talking with you again. Thanks for coming on the program today.
Yeah, absolutely. I missed coming on.
I know. Well, we're going to have to do this more often. And I just ran across this story last night. Ed Stack, the CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods, who's another anti-gun billionaire, the guy who was, okay with destroying $5 million worth of his inventory to make some sort of gun control point. He's now thinking about running for president, Ashe.
Yeah, I mean, let's let the guy whose decision to destroy those guns and completely destroy, insult an entire market, and leading to the company's loss of $150 million in sales. Yeah, let's have that guy's expertise in the White House.
I just, to me, this is, it's ego, I think, and hubris more than anything else, because even if you're the most ardent gun control supporter out there, when you think of anti-gun billionaires, you don't think of Ed Stack first, right? You think of Michael Bloomberg, who apparently is also considering getting into the presidential race.
Wait, Bloomberg's back to considering this again? Wasn't that a couple months ago, years ago? Isn't he always like Trump with this, with the always considering? But I know, I feel like it's a little late for anyone else to jump in.
I'm with you. I am with you too. But apparently, if you got $1 billion in your bank account, you think that you can just, I guess, hop in and flood the airwaves, or maybe, I was talking with Jesse Kelly about this. I think this was last week. And part of the thing is, when you get to that point, do you just not have anybody around who can tell you, hey, Ed, this is a really dumb idea? Nobody's going to vote for you for president. Nobody really wants you to run for president. Or do they just say, wow, Ed, that's fantastic. You know what? Give me $100,000. I'll put together some focus groups. We'll do some message testing. Do they not have anybody around them who can say, dumb idea?
Yeah, apparently they don't. But if you notice what happens with gun control, right? Because he wouldn't even be the only candidate in that's pretty much only there for gun control. I mean, Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke is also pretty much doing nothing but saying, I'm going to confiscate your guns, vote for me, right?
And Trump is Hitler. Like, yes, those are his 2 points. Yes, I'm taking your guns and Trump is Hitler.
Right, but if you see this, like, this weird thing about gun control that someone pointed out a couple of weeks ago, that's like, whenever Democrats get into trouble, they're like, gun control, right? Like, remember after Harvey Weinstein was first exposed, he, like, wrote a letter that's like, I'm stepping down and I'm gonna spend my time focusing on gun control. And then, Ralph Northam, the governor blackface, you know, like, in Virginia, and he, like, recently, right, like, is now saying, like, okay, we're going to focus on gun control. Beto starts failing in the presidential race, and it's like, it's all gun control now. It's just this really weird habit that Democrats seem to have now, where when things go wrong, they pivot to gun control. But in the case of Stack, it's even more hilarious because his problems were caused by his desire for gun control. And yet he's going to lean into the skid, apparently. There was also Steve Kerr, by the way, Golden State Warriors coach, who, I don't know much about China, but you know what I do know? Gun control. I know AR-15s, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Right. So you're right. I mean, it is that go-to, okay, I got to talk about something else. Deflect. What do I deflect? Gun control. But, when Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, I like how you use the full name, by the way. I think I'm going to start doing that, even though it's really long to say. I do that in my articles because it's like, he's like, just giving him the Beto thing is just like, I mean, isn't that encouraging cultural appropriation?
I think it might be. Well, now we also have Pierre Delecto. I mean, is Mitt Romney appropriating the French? Anyway, when Beto did his campaign reset, it didn't really do anything, Ash. I mean, in terms of his polling, he's still at, he's lucky if he gets 2% in any polls. His third quarter fundraising was nothing to write home about. This was not the relaunch and public embrace that O'Rourke was hoping for. So does gun control work even as a deflection?
No, it absolutely doesn't. Because Democrats they see the media all agrees with them. They have their friends that are all in their own bubble, like on the coast, mostly East Coast, and they all hate guns, and they don't have friends that own guns or anything in it. So they have this idea that everybody in this country hates guns, or that it's a winning message, when it's like, no. I mean, you know the stats on how many guns are in this country and how many people own guns or multiple guns in this country. If you, like, it's like they just don't believe those people exist, and it's like it's like half the country, right?
Yeah, it's about a third of the adults in this country own firearms. Almost half of all households are gun-owning households. But you're right, and I think that part of that too is just you listen to how they talk about this issue, and because they feel like they're in the majority, they don't give a damn about the minority, right? If it's 55-45, it's 51-49. As long as they're in the 51%, they don't even want to hear what the 49% has to say, and that to me is really disturbing, because you've got individuals who clearly have no idea what they're talking about, no idea how firearms work. They've given no thought whatsoever into how their proposed gun laws would be enforced. But because they claim some sort of moral high ground, and they now want to, bash gun owners for being gun owners, they're trying to appeal, I think, to the ignorance, and not the stupidity, but the ignorance, the lack of knowledge of voters who aren't gun owners. And they're trying to, I think, terrify Americans about their gun-owning neighbors and their gun-owning family members.
Yeah, absolutely. But what they don't realize, that gun owners are voters. I mean, by large swaths, and that a lot of people who don't own guns tend not to be. I mean, if you look at the populations of who votes, right, and it's people that are likely to own guns when you think about, the right coming out in primaries, and Republicans vote more in off-year elections, right, or percentage of votes in certain states, and you just think there's some sort of correlation there, whereas people unlikely to vote are younger people who now tend to be pretty liberal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at that, it's like the people that you're trying to appeal to just aren't the rabid voters. The people that you're completely offending and turning off, they're the rabid voters.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I will say that, one of the strategies that we're seeing right here in Virginia is on the part of gun control activists, target the soccer moms. Go after the suburban moms, scare the bejeebers out of them. Your kids aren't safe going to school. You can't go to a Walmart. You can't walk down the street without worrying that your kid is going to get shot. And the only way that you're going to feel any better is if you elect Democrats who are going to implement these, quote unquote, common sense gun safety reforms. They're spending hundreds, if not millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in Virginia. We've got elections in, a week and a half, a little bit less than 2 weeks. And that messaging is, on the air right now in Northern Virginia, Richmond, Virginia Beach area. And they really believe like that is going to be a successful political maneuver here to scare the suburban moms into voting for Democrats.
Yeah, I'm wondering how it'll work. We're pretty sure at this point that Democrats are going to be elected. Virginia is heading for becoming a blue state at this point due to the number of people in Northern Virginia outnumbering pretty much like the rest of the state, it seems, when it comes to voting, and they're totally bought into all of this. So whether that messaging has any effect or not is, I'm really not sure. It's probably more of a correlation than a causation given just the liberal leaning of Northern Virginia. And also just wondering how many people still have cable. I just got cable again just to watch sports, and I don't see these messages on ESPN and NBC, So, you got to wonder how much these ads are reaching people these days with Netflix and Hulu and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess if Ed Stack decides to get in the race, he can. He's probably got the money ass to just send people door to door to knock and, hey, have you heard about Ed Stack?
Tom Steyer bought himself into one of the debates, right? Just by spending his own money, So billionaires can do that, but once you get into the debate, you've got to perform, and I haven't heard anything about Steyer since.
No, and frankly, I don't think we're going to hear much about Ed Stack going forward either. Hey, Ashe, thank you as always for coming on the program. It was really, really good to have you here again, and I look forward to doing this again very, very soon. All right, before we get to today's armed citizen story, our good deed, and our recidivist report, there is one more story that I want to talk about. It is World Series time, and although I am a Boston Red Sox fan, I am rooting for the Nationals in the World Series. Obviously, I have a lot of friends in the Northern Virginia, D.C. area. I actually have a friend of Cam and Company, who actually used to be a part of this program, who is now working these games in the World Series. And I just think it is absolutely the coolest thing that he gets to do that. So I'm rooting for the Nationals, but there have been some distractions off the field regarding things that folks have said and even tweeted. So Rob Drake is a Major League Baseball umpire who is a Donald Trump supporter. And the other night, Rob was on social media because he's not working the postseason. So I guess he's, hanging out of the house and watching politics and getting riled up because late Tuesday, he said that on Twitter, he said that he planned to buy an AR-15 because, quote, if you impeach my president, all caps, this way, you will have another civil war, all caps. 1, 2, 3 exclamation points. Hashtag MAGA 2020. There was another tweet a little bit earlier in the evening where he said, you can't do an impeachment inquiry from the basement of Capitol Hill without even a vote. What is going on in this country? Now, Major League Baseball's commissioner, Rob Manfred, says that they're investigating these tweets. And my question is, for what exactly? What exactly are you investigating? By the way, there's really nothing to investigate. That's no real subtext to, hey, I'm buying an AR-15 because if you impeach the president, I think there's going to be a civil war in this country. Now, that's not a threat. It's not like Rob Drake said, hey, if you impeach the president, I'm taking my AR-15 and I'm going to go pay you guys a visit. I don't know about you, but have you looked around the world lately? Have you seen the amount of civil unrest that is happening in countries like Spain and obviously Hong Kong, right? The a city there in China that is fighting for its continued independence, or at least a little bit of independence under communist control. But you've had, protests in Chile, in Iraq. It's kind of an edgy time, right? We seem to be on edge globally right now. So to say that, the impeachment of Donald Trump will lead to civil war, I don't happen to believe that's the case. Could it lead to civil unrest? Yeah, sure it could. Could the re-election of Donald Trump in 2020 lead to civil unrest? Yeah, sure it could. If you say, I'm going to go out and buy an AR-15 because I think there might be a civil war, I think I might need to use that firearm to protect myself because stuff's going crazy. Is that a threat? No, it's not. So I'm really unclear what exactly there is to investigate here. My hope is that Rob Manfred, the commissioner, comes out and says, yeah, so we investigated, and it turns out there's this thing called the First Amendment, and we're not going to get in the habit of policing what our umpires say on their private Twitter feeds. Obviously, if they do something to make it, he's not even been suspended from Twitter for the tweet, for God's sake. So anyway, keep your eyes on this story. I have a feeling we're not going to see Rob Manfred, Major League Baseball commissioner, come out and actually say, yeah, this is nothing. I suspect what's going to happen is he'll say, we're investigating, and then in a few days, the news cycle will move on. And people will stop asking Rob Manfred, so what's going on with this umpire? And it will just quietly fade away. That's what I suspect will happen, but we'll let you know if anything different happens. All right, let's get to today's good deed of the day, armed citizen story, and our recidivism report. In fact, we can start there in California, Bakersfield, California, where officials say the suspect in a fatal stabbing on Monday is homeless, has had plenty of previous contacts with law enforcement, but unfortunately, it sounds like nothing really has ever been done. So this is Kern County, California. The guy's 26 years old. And apparently the stabbing took place at a home where two people were shot and killed just over a year ago. Jesse James John and Selena Sanchez were shot and killed there October 4th, 2018. Two individuals arrested in that crime. And then this week, allegedly, 26-year-old David Vallis fatally stabbed 36-year-old Ibrahim Mohammed Raja at this abandoned home. Megan Long, who lives nearby, called police, assisted the stabbing victim, said that dozens of homeless individuals roam through her neighborhood daily and use the abandoned home as a place to do drugs and sleep. Gosh, do you think maybe the state of California might be interested in the homelessness problem, or are they too busy, trying to ensure that California residents don't drive out of state, purchase ammunition in Arizona, and then come back home? You got a lot of goofy laws on the books there in California that I happen to believe are perhaps inhibiting law enforcement and the government from addressing more serious and major circumstances. Megan Long says, you got to worry about somebody snatching your kid or hurting your kid. My kids got threatened while they were inside our yard by a homeless man. Now, police say that Vallis, who is a homeless individual from Bakersfield, has been convicted for a series of previous convictions in recent years, including drug offenses, vehicle theft, evading police. In August, he received 215 days in the county jail for a drug offense, as well as for violating parole. But according to the Kern County DA's office, he was released later that month, August 16th, because of staffing issues at the Lerdo jail. Served supposedly 56 days, although I'm not sure how that happened when he got the sentence in August and then was released in August. So I don't know what's going on there. But again, staffing problems at the county jail, which is another problem in California. California has had this light on crime approach lately, and it's fascinating. There's a story I'm going to be writing up for Bearing Arms later today where the headline is something like California's law and order past haunts Kamala Harris. Yeah, God forbid we have a culture of law and order in the state of California or in the United States. Instead, what happened in California a few years ago, there were a couple of propositions that were put before voters that were basically designed as criminal justice measures. There was another bill that passed through, all about criminal justice, but the real crux of the matter was this was meant to relieve the prison population in California. California had been sued over inadequate medical care in prison facilities. And a few years ago, the Supreme Court said, you got to do something. You got to hire more docs or, release more prisoners. And California decided to release more prisoners because hiring more medical staff, building more facilities, that's expensive. Letting criminals back onto the street does not come within immediate cost to the government, although there are some certain secondary costs involved. But this was a money-saving venture. And so they had this big plan to remove a lot of offenders from prison, let a lot of them out early. And then other offenders were going to go from the state prisons down to county jails. And then in the future, these counties would be housing more inmates that should have been in prison. So what's happening now is that the counties and the county lockups are full of people who should be in prison but aren't. And so now there aren't as many spaces in the county lockup for lower level offenders, for individuals who would have been held without bond previously because they're a danger to the community or a flight risk. This has had a trickle-down effect. And this case with Mr. Vallis here in California is just a perfect example of that. All right, on to our armed citizen story of the day from, you ready for this? New Jersey. I know. I was a little surprised by that too. Harrison Township, New Jersey. And the armed citizen in question, Philadelphia Eagles Fletcher Cox. Apparently there was an attempted break-in at Cox's home. The ex of a woman that Fletcher Cox is seeing tried to break in. According to ESPN, suspect is said to have damaged a vehicle on Cox's property by throwing rocks through the front and rear windows, and then tried to gain entrance into the home by throwing large rocks through the front doors. This was caught on surveillance cameras. He's walking around the exterior of the home. He's got a baseball bat, tries to get in through the garage several times. And that is when Fletcher Cox grabbed a shotgun. Oh, Joe Biden would be so happy. Grab a shotgun, grab a shotgun. Anyway, he grabbed a shotgun. And that, according to ESPN, prompted the suspect to flee the area in a black Porsche before eventually being apprehended. Eagles coach Doug Peterson on Wednesday said the police are handling it. It's a personal issue, so I'm out of it. Okay. How about, can you at least say, you know what, I'm glad Fletcher Cox is all right? Can you say that, Coach? I mean, you don't have to go so far as to say, you know what, I'm glad Fletcher Cox had a gun, was able to protect himself from this guy who was throwing rocks through the window trying to get entrance into the home. I'd like it if you said that. But you could just say, yeah, I'm really glad he's okay, and hopefully this guy gets what's coming to him. I think China has freaked out so many folks in the world of sports, they don't even know what to say. Well, obviously not one umpire in Major League Baseball, but besides that guy, everybody seems to be walking on eggshells right now in the sports world right now. I don't want to say anything. Don't want to say anything. Afraid of the wokening and what might happen. All right, let's get to today's good deed of the day from New York State. I just realized all three of our stories are like from the most anti-gun places in the country: California, New Jersey, now New York. All right, North Babylon, New York. The Facebook page of the North Babylon Volunteer Fire Company talks about a house fire right across the street from an elementary school that they recently had to put out. You can see there a photo of the home in question. As it turns out, there were some people stuck inside this home that was on fire, and thanks to the efforts of a police officer in Suffolk County, New York, these individuals are safe today. Officer Francis McKay gained entry inside that home. He found two good Samaritans, actually, who were trying to help an individual down the stairs. He was able to get those Good Samaritans out of the home, and he was also able to pick up that 71-year-old man, or excuse me, the man, his wife is 71 years old, but he was able to pick up that man, carry him down the stairs. His 71-year-old wife was able to escape safely on their own. There was a crossing guard apparently who was involved, who was treated for smoke inhalation. Firefighters have brought the flames under control after about half an hour. I don't know if the home was a total loss, but the good news is that the residents inside are safe and sound, thanks to the quick actions, again, of those Good Samaritans, as well as Suffolk County Officer Francis McKay, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. We appreciate you being a part of the program, as always. And as always, you can get the show as a podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, townhall.com podcast as well. I'm pretty sure we're on Google Podcasts. I always want to start with Google Podcasts, but I'm not 100% sure we're there. I'm pretty sure we're there, though. You can also subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube, and that way you will never miss a show. Thank you again, by the way, for all of the well wishes, the prayers, the kind words about my wife, Miss E, and her ongoing struggles with cancer. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. I really do appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll see you back here tomorrow with more of the latest Second Amendment news and information right here on Bearing Arms Cam and Company.